The dismissal. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the communication chamber of Luna Station, watching the holographic display flicker with incoming messages from across the galaxy. Her weathered hands gripped the metal railing as she read the final response from the Stellar Alliance Council. After 15 years of diplomatic attempts, humanity had received their answer. It was not the one they had hoped for. The message was brief and cold. Earth's application for membership in the galactic community had been denied. Again. The reasoning was the same as always. Humans were too primitive, too violent, too unpredictable to join civilized galactic society. Elena's jaw tightened as she read the final line that called humanity a species still learning to walk among the stars. Dr. Marcus Chen entered the chamber, his tablet glowing with scientific data and his expression grim. The chief science officer had spent the last decade trying to prove human worth through technological advancement. His dark hair showed streaks of gray from years of stress and sleepless nights working on projects that the aliens dismissed as amusing attempts at progress. The same response as before, Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer from Elena's expression. Worse, Elena replied, handing him the communication device. This time they added insults about our barbaric military practices and outdated thinking patterns. Ambassador Sarah O'Connor joined them, her diplomatic uniform crisp despite the late hour. She had been Earth's voice in the galaxy for over a decade, attending countless meetings where alien species discussed humanity like specimens in a laboratory. Her red hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her green eyes showed the frustration of years of failed negotiations. The Zephyrian delegate called us barely evolved primates with nuclear toys, Sarah said, her usually calm diplomatic voice carrying an edge of anger. The Crystalline Collective suggested we focus on learning basic civilization before attempting to join advanced species. Elena turned to face the massive viewing window that showed Earth hanging in space below them. The blue and white marble looked peaceful from this distance, but she knew that down there, 4 billion humans were waiting to hear if they would finally be accepted by their galactic neighbors. She would have to tell them that once again, they were considered too primitive to matter. The 3 leaders of humanity's space program had known each other for years. They had worked together through first contact, through the early years of learning that Earth was just one small world in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. They had watched as alien species shared just enough technology to keep humans interested, but never enough to make them equals. 15 years, Marcus said quietly. 15 years of proving ourselves, and they still see us as children playing with dangerous toys. The irony was not lost on any of them. Humanity had made incredible progress since first contact. Their cities now used clean fusion power based on alien designs. Mars had 3 growing colonies with artificial atmospheres. The asteroid mining operations provided resources that had ended scarcity on Earth. Human medicine could cure diseases that had plagued the species for millennia. But none of it mattered to the galactic community. The Stellar Alliance was composed of dozens of species that had achieved faster-than-light travel millions of years ago. They had technologies that could reshape matter at the molecular level, weapons that could crack planets, and minds that could process information at speeds that made human computers look like ancient calculators. They measure advancement by age, Sarah explained, as she had many times before. The youngest species in the Alliance achieved spaceflight 300,000 years ago. To them, we are infants who learned to walk yesterday. Elena pulled up the tactical displays that showed human military capabilities compared to alien technology. It was not a fair comparison. Human ships were fast and well-armed by human standards, but they were like rowboats next to alien dreadnoughts. Human weapons could destroy cities, but alien weapons could sterilize entire planets. Human shields could stop bullets and missiles, but alien shields could deflect the energy of stars. Maybe they have a point, Marcus admitted reluctantly. Our fastest ships take months to reach the nearest star. Their cargo vessels can cross the galaxy in days. Our most advanced AI can beat humans at chess, but their computers can predict the behavior of entire civilizations. That's not the issue, Elena said firmly. The issue is that they judge us only by what we lack, never by what we have. She pulled up another display, this one showing human achievements that the aliens consistently ignored. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters that would have destroyed other species. They had explored their entire planet despite having bodies that were poorly designed for extreme environments. They had reached space using chemical rockets and determination, when other species had achieved flight through technologies beyond human understanding. We adapt, Elena continued. We survive. We never give up. Those might not be impressive to species that have conquered the laws of physics, but they matter. The communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Sarah activated the display, expecting another diplomatic communication from the Alliance. Instead, the message came from Earth's deep space monitoring stations. Dr. Lisa Park, the director of the Outer System Observation Network, appeared on screen looking confused and concerned. We're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the galaxy, Dr. Park reported. The readings don't match any known alien technology. Whatever it is, it's big, and it's moving this way. Marcus immediately pulled up the sensor data on his tablet. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the human database of alien technologies. They were also unlike anything that should exist according to human understanding of physics. The signatures suggested objects the size of moons moving at velocities that should tear them apart. How long until they reach inhabited systems? Elena asked. At current speed, they'll hit the outer colonies of the Stellar Alliance in 6 months, Dr. Park replied. But Commander, there's something else. We're also picking up distress signals from Alliance worlds near the Galactic Rim. It sounds like they're evacuating. The 3 human leaders looked at each other with growing concern. In 15 years of contact with the galactic community, they had never seen the advanced alien species show fear of anything. The Alliance controlled technologies that could manipulate black holes and create artificial dimensions. What could possibly make them run? Get me a direct line to Alliance Command, Sarah ordered. If something is threatening the galaxy, we need to know about it. The response came back within minutes, but it was not what they expected. Instead of information or a request for cooperation, the Alliance sent a simple message. Primitive species are advised to prepare for evacuation to the galactic outer rim. Advanced civilizations will provide minimal assistance for refugee transport. Elena stared at the message in disbelief. They're not asking us to help fight whatever this is. They're telling us to run. And they're calling it minimal assistance, Sarah added with bitter humor. Even in a galactic crisis, they can't resist reminding us how unimportant we are. Marcus was already running calculations on his tablet. Even if they provided transport, there's no way to evacuate 4 billion people in 6 months. And that's assuming they actually help, which doesn't seem likely given their attitude toward us. Elena made a decision that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. She activated the emergency communication system that connected Luna Station with every human settlement from Earth to the outer asteroid mines. This is Commander Vasquez to all human facilities, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from a fight. We have a situation developing that threatens the entire galaxy. The alien species that have spent 15 years telling us we're too primitive to matter are running away. They've offered to evacuate some of us, but they clearly don't consider human lives a priority. She paused, looking out at the Earth below, and then at her 2 closest colleagues who had fought beside her for so many years. So we're going to do what humans have always done when faced with impossible odds. We're going to stand our ground and fight. If we're really as primitive as they say, then maybe it's time to show the galaxy what primitive determination can accomplish. Marcus began pulling up defensive plans that the human military had developed during the early years of contact, back when they were not sure if the aliens were friends or enemies. Sarah started composing messages to every human settlement, calling for unity and preparation. Elena activated the production facilities that could convert civilian infrastructure into military hardware. Across human space, the response was immediate and unanimous. From the farming colonies on Mars to the mining stations in the asteroid belt, humans began preparing for a war they knew nothing about against an enemy they had never seen. They did not have the advanced weapons of the Alliance species. They did not have the ancient wisdom of civilizations millions of years old. They did not have technologies that could bend reality itself. But they had something the galaxy was about to learn to respect. They had absolutely no intention of giving up without a fight. The species that had been called too primitive to join galactic civilization was about to show the universe what human stubbornness could accomplish when everything was on the line. As reports came in from the edge of the galaxy, it became clear that whatever was coming had already destroyed several Alliance worlds. The great civilizations that had dismissed humanity were fleeing in panic, abandoning their home systems, and heading for the outer rim where they hoped to hide. Elena stood in the command center, surrounded by tactical displays and communication feeds from across human space. She thought about the message from the Alliance calling humans primitive and unworthy. In a few months, the galaxy would learn whether primitive determination could succeed where advanced technology had failed. The Reckoning. The first clear images of the enemy arrived 3 months later, transmitted by a dying Alliance probe at the galaxy's edge. Elena watched the footage in the Luna Station command center, surrounded by her staff and representatives from every human colony. What they saw defied explanation and filled even the most experienced military officers with dread. The entities called themselves the Void Swarm, though that name came from hurried Alliance communications as their outer worlds fell one by one. They were not ships in any sense the humans understood. They were living constructs of dark energy, each one the size of a small moon, moving through space like enormous jellyfish swimming through an ocean of stars. Dr. Marcus Chen analyzed the probe data with growing alarm. The Void Swarm absorbed energy instead of using it, drained life from planets instead of conquering them, and left behind empty systems where thriving worlds had once existed. Wherever they passed, space itself seemed to grow darker, colder, more dead. The Alliance worlds that tried to fight them lasted less than an hour. Marcus reported to the assembled human leadership. Their most powerful weapons had no effect. Energy shields were drained instantly. Even their fastest ships couldn't escape once the Void Swarm arrived. Ambassador Sarah O'Connor had been monitoring communications from across the galaxy as the great civilizations fled toward the outer rim. The messages painted a picture of complete panic among species that had considered themselves masters of the universe just months earlier. The Crystalline Collective abandoned their home system without even attempting a defense, Sarah reported. The Zephyrian Empire is evacuating their core worlds. Every major Alliance species is running for the galactic edge, and they're all heading for the same region, as far from Earth as possible. Elena studied the tactical displays showing the Void Swarm's advance. They moved in a coordinated pattern, systematically consuming everything in their path. At their current rate of advance, they would reach the Sol system in 8 weeks. The Alliance evacuation plans assumed that primitive species like humanity would be consumed quickly, buying the advanced civilizations more time to escape. So they're using us as a speed bump, Elena said grimly. They expect us to die quickly and slow the enemy down while they run away. The Zephyrian delegate sent a final message, Sarah added with barely contained anger. He said humanity should accept their fate with primitive dignity, and that our sacrifice would be remembered in Alliance historical records. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been abandoned by the galactic community they had tried so hard to join. The advanced species that had spent 15 years calling humans too primitive to matter now expected them to die for the greater good of civilizations that had never shown them respect. Elena looked around at her staff, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had carried humanity through every crisis in their history. These were the descendants of people who had survived ice ages with stone tools, crossed oceans in wooden boats, and reached for the stars with chemical rockets. Being abandoned by aliens who considered them inferior was just another obstacle to overcome. "All right," Elena said, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her the leader of human space forces. "If they want to run, let them run. We'll handle this ourselves." The next 6 weeks became a frantic period of preparation unlike anything in human history. Every resource in human space was converted to military production. The Mars colonies began manufacturing weapons using techniques learned from studying alien technology. The asteroid mining stations were converted into missile production facilities. Earth's orbital shipyards worked around the clock to modify civilian vessels into warships. Marcus led the scientific effort to understand their enemy. Unlike the Alliance species, humans approached the Void Swarm as a problem to be solved rather than a force of nature to be fled from. They analyzed every scrap of data, looking for weaknesses that the more advanced civilizations had missed. They absorbed conventional energy, Marcus explained to Elena during one of their planning sessions. Lasers, plasma weapons, fusion explosions. Everything the Alliance used to fight them just makes them stronger. But they seem to have trouble with kinetic impacts and chemical explosives. "You mean bullets and bombs?" Elena asked. "Exactly. The most primitive weapons in our arsenal might be the most effective against them." Sarah coordinated with human settlements across the solar system, organizing a defense that relied on tactics the galaxy had not seen for millions of years. Instead of massive fleet battles, humans planned guerrilla warfare. Instead of energy shields and advanced armor, they prepared to use stealth and mobility. Instead of surrendering when faced with superior forces, they planned to fight until the last human was gone. The Void Swarm arrived at the edge of the Sol system on a Tuesday morning, their dark forms blotting out the stars as they approached. Alliance observers, watching from their hiding places at the galactic rim, expected the primitive human defenses to collapse within minutes. Instead, humanity did something that the galaxy had not seen in millions of years of Alliance dominance. They attacked first. Elena led the initial strike from the bridge of the ESS Determination, a converted mining ship armed with rail guns that fired solid tungsten slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. Around her, a fleet of modified civilian vessels carried weapons that the Alliance considered laughably primitive: nuclear warheads, kinetic penetrators, and chemical explosive devices. "All ships, this is Commander Vasquez," Elena broadcast to the human fleet. "Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're trying to do something these things have never encountered before. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and make them think." The human attack confused the Void Swarm immediately. Instead of the energy weapons they were designed to absorb, they faced solid projectiles moving at tremendous velocity. Instead of fleet formations trying to engage them directly, they faced small groups of ships attacking from unexpected angles and then disappearing into the asteroid belt. The first Void Swarm entity that entered the inner solar system was met by a coordinated barrage of kinetic weapons that tore through its energy form like bullets through smoke. It began to dissipate, something that Alliance observers had never seen happen in all their recorded encounters with these creatures. Marcus coordinated the technical aspects of the battle from Luna Station, analyzing the enemy response and adjusting human tactics in real time. What he discovered changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about the Void Swarm. "They're not invincible," Marcus reported to Elena during a brief pause in the fighting. "They've just never faced anyone desperate enough to try techniques they consider primitive. Their energy forms can be disrupted by physical impacts, and they have trouble adapting to unpredictable attack patterns." The battle for the Sol system lasted for 3 days. Humans used every tactic that the galaxy had forgotten: ramming attacks, proximity mines, coordinated strikes by small groups of ships that appeared without warning and vanished before the enemy could respond. They fought like pirates and guerrillas, using the asteroid belt as cover and turning civilian infrastructure into weapons. On the 3rd day, something unprecedented happened. The Void Swarm began to retreat. Elena watched from her damaged command ship as the dark entities pulled back toward the outer system, moving away from Earth for the first time since their advance had begun. Around her, human ships that should have been destroyed hours ago continued fighting with weapons that should have been useless against such an advanced enemy. The communications channels filled with voices from across the galaxy as Alliance observers realized what they were witnessing. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Void Swarm had been forced to retreat. The primitive species that had been written off as a minor delay had accomplished what millions of years of advanced civilization could not. Commander Vasquez came a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship hiding at the galactic rim. "This is Fleet Admiral Nexar. We need to talk." Elena looked out at the stars where the Void Swarm was still retreating, pursued by human ships that refused to let them regroup. She thought about 15 years of rejection, of being called primitive and unworthy, of watching alien species treat humanity like children playing with dangerous toys. "Admiral Nexar," Elena replied, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's first galactic victory. "I believe the proper diplomatic protocol is for you to request an audience with Earth's representatives. We'll consider your request when we're finished cleaning up the mess you ran away from." The next few hours changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. As news of humanity's victory spread, the Great Alliance civilizations found themselves in the unprecedented position of needing help from the species they had spent years dismissing. The Void Swarm was still out there, still dangerous, but for the first time they had shown that they could be defeated. Marcus coordinated with human scientists across the solar system to analyze what they had learned. The key to victory had not been advanced technology or superior firepower. It had been adaptability, determination, and the willingness to try tactics that more advanced species considered beneath them. Sarah began receiving diplomatic communications from across the galaxy. The same species that had called humans primitive were now requesting military assistance, technological cooperation, and formal alliance agreements. The galaxy that had rejected humanity's membership application was now begging for human leadership in the war against the Void Swarm. Elena stood in the command center of Luna Station, looking out at the Earth that had been written off as unworthy of galactic civilization. Around her, displays showed human ships pursuing the retreating enemy, human colonies preparing for the next phase of the war, and human engineers designing new weapons based on what they had learned from their impossible victory. "Commander," Sarah said, holding a communication device that contained formal requests for alliance from a dozen major galactic civilizations. "They want to know if humanity will help defend the galaxy." Elena smiled, thinking about the message that had called humans too primitive to join civilized galactic society. The species that had been rejected for being too violent, too unpredictable, too stubborn to give up were now the galaxy's best hope for survival. "Tell them we'll consider their request," Elena replied. "But this time, we'll be negotiating as equals." The galaxy had learned what humans had always known. Sometimes being primitive meant being strong enough to stand and fight when everyone else was running away. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations needed to be saved by people who were too stubborn to accept defeat and too determined to give up hope. Humanity had finally found their place in the galactic community, not as junior members begging for acceptance, but as the species that stood between civilization and darkness when everything was on the line.